Welcome back to Gatabud. This is my legendary Bout Bonds of Friendship video. This is my setup. I have healing materia, revival materia, re-raise materia paired with magic efficiency. I've got MP up, HP up, ATB boost, first strike, ATB assist, skill master, ATB stagger, limit siphon, and then I have fire and ice on elemental. I'm using the umbral blade with defense plus 50, reprieve, max HP plus 200, and limit gauge guard. And the accessory I'm using is the Gatabud. This is my first video where I'm going to say it's required. You need to get it. This challenge is harder than any of the brutal challenges, so I don't feel bad saying that. Since this is round one, I'm going to show you something special that I figured out. You want to start this round by mashing X before you even get control of your characters as quickly as possible, and you want to open with Zack using stop on Titan. This is super gimmicky, and if this was anything other than round one, I wouldn't even mention this, but this fight is probably going to take like 15 minutes if you don't do this. You want to get as much ATB on Zack as possible, and when stop is about 75% done, you want to cast Aurora. You then want to try to predict when Titan is going to come out of that stop phase and already be into your limit being executed. While your limit is going off, you use Zack to try to get a little more ATB and quickly get off another Aurora. This opens the door for an instant stagger on Titan. Cloud using Focus Thrust will help pull this off, although it would be better if you could use a double Focus Thrust. It just doesn't really work out that way with the limited time. And then, just like that, you have a staggered Titan in the beginning. You want to immediately cast Stop again and go right into Soldier's Honor and get infinite MP. From here, it's going to get even hairier if you want to keep this going. And you have already knocked out like half of Titan's health at this point, so you've already got a massive win, even if you screw this up. But you want to try to leverage free Aerogas to pull off yet another stagger and try to kill this thing instantly. It is possible. I figured out this mechanic pretty late in my winning run of this battle, and you'll see when I show you the original Titan footage where this began to kind of materialize in my head. But a combination of well-timed limits when Titan is coming out of stagger and pressuring it with air elemental magic will pressure it and keep it from going into that Earth and Aegis mechanic. Now, I am still going to show you the original way that I defeated Titan that took 15 daggum minutes, but this was too juicy not to share, although this is super gimmicky. Full disclosure, this took me about an hour of resets to get right. Now, if you do the math, then if you want to do a perfect Titan from start to finish without Earth and Aegis going off, it's not worth your time. The value in me showing you this is you will drastically speed up your Titan attempt, though. And it will get off an Earth and Aegis, but the normal strategy I have prepared for you here will more than compensate for the fact that you won't have it stun locked the entire time. Again, if this wasn't round one, I wouldn't even bring this up. I wouldn't even show it, but since you can reset and get a decent look and fiddle around with this, I thought, why not? Because it really does stink that if you don't do it this way, this fight takes like 15 minutes. But what if you don't have an absolutely sizzling performance like I just did here? Here's the original attempt where it did take me 15 minutes and you get every look possible from Titan. I didn't realize in the beginning that you could cast Stop on it quick enough to block Earth and Aegis from taking effect. So in my original attempt, I would open with a double triple slash just to give Zack some ATB. And the core strategy here is to try to have Zack fire off 3 actions and to use Soldier's Honor as quickly as possible so that Zack can begin buffing both Cloud and Zack with things like haste and regen and mana wall without using MP. In this challenge, MP is your biggest asset, and you can use it one of two ways. You can try to mitigate damage, or in certain situations, use Zack offensively with things like Aeroga. In this particular fight, I would lean towards using Aeroga instead. But once you have Earth and Aegis up, Aeroga begins to lose a little bit of its luster, and you're better off saving your infinite MP phase for when Earth and Aegis is at lower health. One good thing about the Titan battle is that he's not like super deadly, he's just extremely annoying. It's just going to take a while, and you're going to build ATB very quickly by taking all of this non-lethal damage. What you want to do at the end of the day is get through this fight using the least amount of MP possible. Now, that's easier said than done, because this fight, if you don't figure out doing this like perfect stun lock maneuver, it's going to drag out for a while. There were many attempts where I used like half of Cloud and Zack's MP both, just limping through this fight. And when you think about that possibility, and then you think about the fact, oh, I can waste a bunch of MP on Zack casting arrows to try to force extra staggers, then the offensive spells have more value. And that's only if you use them correctly to force pressure. I don't see them as valuable when trying to take out the Earth and Aegis once it's already up. Now, once you max out Cloud's limit level from using Soldier's Honor, that limit is extremely valuable in delaying Titan using Earth and Aegis coming out of stagger. It'll be your number one tool to assist in you stun locking this thing, because I'd say 9 runs out of 10, even if you're an all-pro, there's a good chance that you'll screw up the stun lock and have to deal with one Earth and Aegis phase. I wouldn't restart over and over trying to get this thing absolutely perfect. I really wouldn't. Knowing all of these intricacies about it, though, makes this fight way easier and way faster. And the faster that you get to round 7 and onwards, and the more looks you get at that, statistically speaking, the more likely you are to get past this challenge. So speeding this up definitely has merit. Now, I could try to talk about Titan for 15 minutes if I really wanted to, but I'm going to pass on that. If you want to see my kind of eureka moment where this all clicked, where using wind magic after the stagger forces pressure and blocks Earth and Aegis, skip ahead to about a minute left in this chapter and you will see that. And then that's when I started really thinking about this, and it just happened that this run was my winning run. So I had to go back to Titan later in the combat sim and run tests on it to confirm what I was thinking. And so you might find that interesting. And it turns out I figured out what a lot of other people already knew, but I'm proud that I figured it out on my own, and I will see you in round 2. Okay, round 2. I'm still grinning because of what I just figured out against Titan and how that battle ended. Now we are on to the souped up version of Quetzalcoatl. Most of these battles, I begin it the same way. I will rush up with Cloud after using ATB boost, and I will go directly into his level 1 limit. And the real reason I use this is because it will kind of stun lock the enemy for about 5 to 10 seconds, and I want to utilize that time to get ATB naturally as Zac and try to cast haste on both Cloud and Zac, and then use a double focus thrust on Cloud or a double triple slash depending on the opponent. Once this is done, both Cloud and Zac just need to use one more action each to force Soldier's Honor, and it's really situational on how you go about what that action will be. I try to avoid burning a bunch of MP early without Soldier's Honor up, but you can use Magnify Regen, that's a cheap option, or you can use one of his silly physical ATB moves under abilities that does almost nothing, but that gets you your third charge. With Cloud, it's usually another focus thrust or something like that. Afterwards, once I have the 3 charges done, I like to try and get Zac's ATB bar full before I hit Soldier's Honor, because I want to maximize the amount of time that I have infinite MP and make the most of it. What I do next is, again, situational depending on the battle. I can either try to put Mana Wall up on both characters to help me survive, or on a battle like this, I can cast Blizzaga. Now, on this one, it's worth noting that I didn't get Zac's ATB up, and that's because I already saw the enemy get pressured, and if you don't have ATB, then Soldier's Honor is a great way to take advantage of building stagger during the pressure phase. So that's what I do here. Since this enemy does a self-pressuring mechanic, you can't really plan when the pressure happens, and you have to just try to take advantage of it. And this one kind of stinks because the Thunderbolts are going to paralyze you and mess with what you're trying to do. So if Cloud gets paralyzed, just switch to Zac and try to do something, or vice versa. When I watch this thing back, though, and knowing what I know after winning the Sephiroth version of this challenge on my first attempt, I wish I had been a little more offensive on this particular enemy and a couple more when it comes to Zac and the infinite MP phase. You'll see me casting Mana Wall here, and honestly, with it so close to being staggered, I feel like a Blizzara would have done just as much good, if not more. The next battle is one where you don't have to care about MP really at all, so there's definitely an argument to be made here to just let the Blizzaras fly and deal with the fact that you might enter the next fight with low MP on Zac. Now, one of the core elements of my overall approach to this battle, like the higher level brutal challenges, Limit Siphon on Cloud is a big deal. But it's a little different because he's wielding Gatabud here instead of the equip that gives you instant level 3 limit. So you have to play it a little differently, but once you have used Soldier's Honor twice, you have all the benefits of Gatabud plus the ability to siphon Zac. Once you have completed the process of raising your level, the limits start flying like crazy, because more times than not, the act of using that high-powered limit will end up staggering the enemy and give you half of your limit gauge back. And if you siphoned Zac or didn't even need to, chances are Zac still has some leftover limit left on his gauge. Rinse and repeat. It's for those reasons that I do not like using limit on an enemy that is already staggered. I feel like that's a better time to get free ATB charges without getting messed with. Now, the good news is this is probably the most difficult non-summon round of this battle. And what that means is you'll have to fight a summon like Titan or Phoenix, and then in between each summon, you'll get a random high-level enemy like this high-powered Quetzalcoatl. This is probably the most difficult one of those high-level enemies. Enjoy it. I will see you in round 3 for an absolute layup. Welcome to round 3, and this is as easy as it gets. Phoenix is just going to constantly heal Cloud, and the only difficult thing about this is going to be, do you want to try to keep Zack alive to force a quick blowout, or do you just want to leave Zack dead and let Cloud do his thing and not have level 3 limit? The key thing here is at the end of each battle, you will recover 50% HP and 30% MP. What you choose to do here needs to be based on how much MP you entered this battle with Cloud to begin with, and can you get Zack back up after a couple deaths, siphon his limit, get off Soldier's Honor without blowing your entire MP pool. On this particular attempt, I chose to leave Zack dead for a while, but also conserve my limit and not use Ascension, the level 2 skill, because I wanted to save all of my limit power for after Flames of Rebirth. Because if you can get level 3, once the enemies become reborn after it uses Flames of Rebirth, if you use the level 3 limit, you will more than likely instantly refill your limit gauge and be able to use it again because you stagger killed the other enemies that it brought back. But that's really pretty much all there is to this fight. It's going to spawn other enemies, you kill those other enemies, you keep at it, and you're going to get a very easy win. The elemental fire defense keeps you from dying, essentially, and I will see you in round 4. Welcome to round 4. We have a demon. He's nowhere near as annoying or difficult as the round 2 Quetzalcoatl was, but at the same time, you can't take this thing lightly. You need to take this fight seriously. The main annoying thing that demons can do is use Gravija, which will drop your health to 1, no matter if you have Mana Wall up or anything else, and that can cause you some issues if you're not prepared for that possibility. Other than that, this is a pretty standard process where I do my normal openers, trying to get haste on both characters. I want to use Soldier's Honor as quickly as possible. I want to raise Cloud's limit gauge to level 3, and I want to start spamming his level 3 limit. On this particular attempt, I wouldn't necessarily say I was sloppy here, but I had a little bit of a bad break where I let Zac die when I was firing off Soldier's Honor. So that definitely slowed down this attempt. You can certainly beat this thing in like 2 minutes if everything goes right. On this one it did not, so I had to raise Zac back up, try Soldier's Honor again, and I managed to recover just fine, and this battle was largely business as usual. I will see you in round 5. Welcome to round 5. The elemental fire and ice defense materia made round 3 with Phoenix an absolute joke. On this one, it's going to be a massive deal, and this fight was probably meant to be pretty difficult without it, and you are going to have a much easier time as a result, but it won't be as impactful as it was against the Phoenix. I want to do my standard opening routines here, getting haste on both characters and try to get Soldier's Honor ready as quickly as possible. But I want to comment on one part of my approach on this fight. If I could have done this part over, I would have been a lot more offensive-minded with Zac in regards to casting Aeroga when Kujata goes into lightning mode. When you use a spell that it's weak to in whatever form it's in, it loses that form. But you really like when it's in Blizzard form or Fire form, so it really only makes sense to use Arrow here. In this particular attempt, I don't think I casted Arrow once. When you watch my edition with Sephiroth, I'm letting the arrows fly, and I probably beat this thing like 3 times faster as a result of doing it like that. It just goes back to the common theme that I had here, where I was far more conservative with using Zac for defensive spell purposes, and the main reason is because all the stuff I like, he didn't have Magnify Materia on, so I had to cast Mana Wall twice, I had to cast Haste twice, you know, and it just became one of those things where the infinite MP phase I had to work with, I had to use all of it just to get the regular buffs I like off. All in all, though, this thing is not that hard. It's a pretty standard battle if you control that lightning phase. Zac's gonna get taken out a couple times, and that's normal. You need to be prepared to Arise him. It's not a big deal. But other than that, you're going to have a pretty easy time with this fight if you get him out of the Thunder phase. Now on the flip side, if you start taking Tri-Disasters though, it's really good that you do have Mana Wall up. They probably won't kill you, but they might. So you got to just kind of go with your gut on how this battle's going. If you have opportunities to be offensive, take it. But if they're not there, definitely get Mana Wall up. I will see you in round 6.
Still up for it?
Welcome to round 6. This is the first round where you're really going to hate that Zach didn't have Thunder included in his elemental spells. It's the one that's missing. But on this one, it's not a huge deal. And in the grand scheme of things, this one's a heck of a lot easier than the other non-summon enemies that we've dealt with. Now remember, we had to beat this thing one-on-one with Cloud. So now that Cloud has help here, this is a freaking cakewalk. At this point, we know that it can Firaga cure us sometimes. We know that there are instant kill moves even without Sharpen. And then we know once it does use Sharpen, if it hits you with Thanalosian Blade, you better hope you haven't wasted your reprieve yet. Having said that, casting Re-Raise is not the worst idea in this round because things can happen and you can make a mistake, and you don't want this to be the thing that ends your run. I personally felt very comfortable in where I was at after beating the Cloud Brutal challenge so many times making the video, though, that I felt confident in taking on an Iron Giant solo even without Zach. So I was feeling great in this round. Now, if Zach had had elemental magic for electric and was able to cast Thunder, that would have made this way easier. And I really missed it here. I'm going to miss it a lot more next round, but it is what it is here. It's not a big deal. Just when it uses Sharpen, try to stagger it. If it's winding up Thanalosian Blade, at worst, make sure it only takes out one person, and we have a survivor. So you want to try to stay on the opposite side that Zach is when you're playing as Cloud, and vice versa. And you should have no problem surviving this thing. And even if you have to ping pong and raise a bunch of times, this should be a very winnable round and a breath of fresh air. And you need to go into the next round with very high MP. I will see you in round 7.
Still up for it. Here it comes. Pay attention. Just ain't your day. My turn.
Alright, welcome to round 7. This is where you really got to earn this, and it starts to get hard. We have Alexander. He starts off invincible, and you have to beat his left and right arm before you can actually damage the body. This is where Zac not having Thunder Elemental is the worst. This is also a fight where an argument could be made to revise my setup to include Thunder and Arrow on Cloud just by itself, just for the sake of casting Thundara on these arms to try to speed things up. I stand by my decision excluding it though. I wanted to be set up for success against Bahamut and Odin, not for Alexander. So we just got to deal with the fact that this thing's going to take a little while. Now, quite frankly, I did a terrible job opening on this battle. It was very sloppy, and it involved me already wasting reprieve on Cloud before we even got to the hard stuff. So I'm kind of mad already. I'm forced to make an important decision that I don't want to make, and that's how to get Soldier's Honor off and not start burning a ton of MP on Alexander when it's not even offensive spells. And I end up deciding to go for it. I know that it's a risky move when Cloud's pretty much dead, but I do it anyways, and that gives me a great opportunity for a free Curaga, and I'm ready to bounce back. But this could have gone a lot differently, and I could have been re-recording those early rounds because of my sloppiness early. For the parts where we've got to cripple the arms, I favor using Braver on Cloud because it's a lot more precise and I can fire it off more quickly to give Zac his ATB boost. Triple Slash will involve you hitting the body for no damage. This is also a fight where you ideally want to have Mana Wall up the entire time because Divine Judgment can come at you fast, and if it's not up, you are going to be in trouble. This is one of those fights where you want to get that second Soldier's Honor off as quickly as possible, despite everything just annoying the crap out of you trying to get to that point. The level 3 limit here is massive, and this is the start of kind of the bread and butter of Cloud constantly limit siphoning Zac and keeping this fight under control by spamming finishing touch. When you are coming out of infinite MP with Zac, you want your final 2 actions to be Mana Wall on each character because that is going to be the biggest thing that will help you survive and win this. And that doesn't just go for Alexander, that goes for Bahamut and Odin going forward as well. Once both arms are down, Alexander is going to become pressured, and it really only takes like 3 focus thrusts to get the stagger, and then you're really going to be in business. You want to make sure, though, if Cloud has his limit break ready, even if Alexander is pressured, you probably want to go ahead and fire off that limit because the act of finishing the limit will be what staggers Alexander, and you're going to get like half your limit gauge back by doing that. So you kind of got to go off vibes here, but that's typically the approach I take. There's certainly an argument for withholding it, though, and saving it for after you come out of stagger because it helps you keep the fight under control. I also really love having a full limit and then getting Zac's ATB pretty full, using Soldier's Honor, then immediately firing off that limit and using that time with Zac to just get really trigger happy with spells and getting both of them in very good situations. This fight, though, is going to turn into a constant cycle of you getting Soldier's Honor back and still using it just for the sake of getting infinite MP on Zac and reapplying all of those defensive buffs to help you survive and keep your health very high. You're going to start seeing it charge Divine Judgment. You want to have Mana Wall up. You want to have full health. And even then there's no guarantee you're going to survive it. So if you've already burned Reprieve, you probably want to get re-raise up on at least Cloud. The good news, if you do take a Divine Judgment with re-raise up, it's almost a foregone conclusion that you're going to re-raise in full limit, and when you come back out of it, you just immediately start using limit, and that makes you invincible, and there's a very good chance that you will finish off whatever it was you were trying to do and possibly stagger it or something. It'll give you an opportunity to mount a comeback, essentially. On that Divine Judgment note, though, I think it does reduce damage if you've taken out one of the arms. It is possible. It's possible that the fact that I have Mana Wall up is just misleading, and what reduced the damage was taking out an arm. I can't say for sure, because on a past attempt, I could have sworn I had Mana Wall up, and he took me out outright, and I was so mad. So I just want you to be warned of that. The only surefire way to survive this thing is re-raise. Anyways, just try to survive. Try not to burn too much MP, but you're going to use some MP here. It's okay. And I will see you in the next round. Thankfully, round 8 is another layup because we had to figure out a way to beat a Mindflayer as Kate Sith without the ability of pressuring it with a synergy ability. So now that you have a partner and the ability to pressure it, this has quickly become a cakewalk. Like that Iron Giant we just beat, you intimately know all of its abilities. You know that you need to hide behind rocks after it uses telekinesis. You know that double beam move needs to be dodged. You know that the Thunderbolt move is going to mess with you and you need to run away off in the distance. And other than that, this is just a standard get haste up, get Soldier's Honor off, start throwing focus thrusts like they're going out of style, and most importantly, get your MP back. Don't make this harder than it needs to be and put yourself in a bad MP situation. Between clearing Alexander and clearing this one, you should be able to get most, if not all, of your HP and MP going into Bahamut. And there's really nothing to say about this thing. It could not be easier after you spent so much time mastering this as Kate Sith. So I will see you in round 9. Get ready for the big show.
Take him down. Now you're in for it. Brace yourself. Let's finish this. By now. Not what I expected.
Welcome to round 9. This is why my build is the way that it is. I want you to be able to survive and not have to rely on any sort of situational things to pressure or stagger Bahamut. Basically what that means is his particle charge stuff, he's gonna get it off, and you're not gonna beat both wings in one try. And that's okay, we don't really care. All of the concepts of getting your limit up level-wise and using your limit gauge to control the battle is going to culminate in this fight. What that means is you want to follow this general pattern of using Soldier's Honor with ATB on Zac, and you then immediately want to fire off your limit break on Cloud to basically make Bahamut be kind of staggered for a couple seconds, and then you want to immediately start casting your spells on Zac, whether it's Mana Wall or Haste or Curaga, and build ATB back on Zac, and then fire off more spells by the time Cloud is done doing his limit. It's in these little kind of mini stagger windows that you maintain full control of this fight that's otherwise pretty brutal and not really forgiving. This is the first battle where I would say you want to maintain re-raise at all times on Cloud unless you are supremely confident in your abilities to navigate things. One really good time to fire off Soldier's Honor is when Bahamut begins the particle charge, because you're not going to accidentally get killed in the middle of your Soldier's Honor animation. If I do need to burn ATB to get Soldier's Honor, and he's doing the particle charge thing, I do like to try to pull off a double Braver on one of the wings. You can cripple one of the wings, but in this particular build, I pretty much never pull off getting both wings, and I don't really try to, and it doesn't really bother me. My only goal here is to try and keep mana wall up basically the entire fight on both characters while abusing Soldier's Honor to have infinite MP to accomplish that goal. Furthermore, I just want to keep limit siphoning Zac and keep firing off as many finishing touches as I possibly can, doing the things that I have described doing. Bahamut is almost positively going to get off a Giga Flare on you, and the goal is to either be able to survive it because of your mana walls and high HP, or be able to re-raise and just keep the fight going. And like Alexander getting Divine Judgment off, the one good thing about Giga Flare is your limit gauges are going to come back, and you can quickly turn the tables after eating a truckload of damage. If you do get defeated by Giga Flare, though, and you re-raise, you probably need to get re-raised back up. And the reason being is stuff can happen even during your recovery. One thing I wish I did better in this fight was dodging Flame Breath. I feel like it's a very dodgeable move by going backwards, and it will help you so much in the long run. I don't really see any scenarios where it's warranted to ignore Flame Breath to try to quickly get off another focused thrust. You can always just do it after Flame Breath is over. Once you see Bahamut use the Giga Drive form, you know your time is limited, you know you're about to get blasted, you need to make sure re-raise is up at all costs at this point. One thing you'll see me do here is make poor decisions as far as how to handle Zac when he doesn't have infinite MP. I see one specific example of me electing to use meteor shots to try to get to Soldier's Honor more quickly, and a Curaga without infinite MP was probably the correct decision, and you see that decision have implications where Cloud barely survives by using Reprieve on a non-Giga Flare move. So I certainly do have plenty of regrets watching this fight over. And then that eventually leads to me wasting a re-raise on a non-Giga Drive event. But you know what? It just is what it is. Another thing I feel like I overvalued was the importance of haste in this battle, and the reason being is because Bahamut has the ability to inflict slow, which overrides haste, which you've burned 2 ATB charges only to see Bahamut flip that to a slow. So take that for what it is. Now, I know Giga Flare is imminent, so I'm trying to make sure that I've got mana wall up and I'm at full health, because I know it's about to happen, and it does happen. And it happens where both characters are at like half limit gauge, and I see Zac go down, and I'm a little surprised because I feel like at full health with a mana wall that shouldn't happen, but it did. In hindsight, having re-raise on Zac as well would have been very nice here, but it is what it is. I come out of Giga Flare probably 1% away from having limit, and so I have 2 full ATB charges, though. I used the first one to raise Zac. That was mistake number 1. I shouldn't have been cheap on MP. I should have just casted Arise. You shouldn't be casting Raise at this point in the battle. Always cast Arise. I then impulsively just mash Focus Thrust, even though I'm not even really close to him, trying to take advantage of that stagger. So mistake number 2. This leads to a comedy of errors where Zack is immediately dead again. And the only good thing at this point is that 1% of limit that I needed is now here, and I can fire off a finishing touch and try to salvage this almost blown Bahamut attempt. I'd hardly call this comeback as crazy as the ones you saw on the Brutal challenge for Rulers of the Outer Worlds, but this was definitely a comeback. I probably should have lost here. So when you're put in a situation where both Cloud and Zack have a full limit gauge, this is essentially 3 level 3 limits ready to get fired off in quick succession. Literally the only thing I'm able to take advantage of in the stagger is a free minute to raise Zack back up and limit siphon him, and then get ready to use that limit break again the second Bahamut comes out of stagger to keep it under control and give Zack some ATB. I'm then able to get Soldier's Honor off and get infinite MP and complete this recovery, and I'm going to be able to win this battle. Suddenly, after a sloppy 7th minute, I start doing everything right, and I even start throwing Firagas at it using Zack during infinite MP and stagger, and I get the win. I will see you in round 10 for the final showdown.
My turn. Don't overdo it. Safety first. Let's do this. Not going down that easy. Sorry. Going all out. You're not getting away. Need a light. Take the lead. How you like this?
Welcome to round 10. This is for all the fame, the glory, and the honor of being a soldier. You can start this one of two ways. You can try to battle it with your limit gauge full and not use it until you see Jallarhorn's warning, or you can do like I do and just go in guns blazing and use it right out of the gate. To be clear though, let's go over the Odin mechanics real quick just so I know that there's not any confusion here. Odin has an invisible counter of how many times it's hit you with its special abilities. If it's hit you enough, it will use Jallarhorn's Warning, which is it telling you, yo, I'm about to kill you, and your options at this point are very limited. The only defense to prevent Jallarhorn's Warning from happening is to hit it more times than it hits you with tactical abilities. My favorite one to accomplish this, without a doubt, is Triple Slash. If you're able to effectively control him spamming Triple Slash, he'll never use Jallarhorn's Warning, as long as you're dodging everything. But you're probably going to get it. This is exactly why I am in every bit of this materia and gear loadout. The second I see Jallarhorn's Warning, I want either to be able to get re-raise on both characters or fire off a limit, whether that means using Limit Siphon or I already have it ready to go. Once it gets hit with a limit, even if it's in Jallarhorn's Warning, it will immediately use Sleipnir's Furor and exit Jallarhorn's Warning, and you won't get hit with Zantetsuken. And that is essentially my Odin strategy in a nutshell. Fire limit or be prepared to re-raise. It's kind of that simple. Now, of course, there's further nuances than that. I mean, he hits like a freight train. He's going to drive you crazy. He's going to mess with you every step of the way. And to top it all off, he's going to use this really annoying move that's going to split the battlefield in two and possibly separate your teammates from each other. And you just have to wait that out. Using this strategy, though, this was my third attempt at beating Odin after making a deep run. And that gives me a lot of confidence delivering this to y'all. No joke, I honestly had more trouble beating 7th Seal than I had beating this. Now, this thing is still incredibly difficult, though. Let's break down my battle. First things first, tip number 1. When this guy is pressured, for whatever reason, Soldier's Honor, of all things, is the real MVP. You're going to end up doing like a third of the stagger gauge by using it, and all of the stuff that he does to mess with you, like when you're trying to do a focus thrust, doesn't take effect. So I'm a huge fan of saving it for this phase and using it as a weapon to stagger Odin. Tip number 2. If you are able to save Reprieve and not waste it on normal combat, Zantetsuken can be survived with Reprieve. Just remember, it only works one time though. Tip number 3. If you do not have limit up and Odin is not pressured in Sleipnir's Furor, the best way to survive is to just dodge around constantly and fill Cloud's ATB by using his ranged slashes after a dodge, and then utilizing Triple Slash from a distance to try to tag it with tactical hits that lower the Jallarhorn's Warning invisible gauge. Tip number 4. If you do not have infinite MP, using Barrier on Zac, if you don't have Mana Wall up, is certainly something to consider, and at a minimum, use it on Cloud to help you survive the non-infinite MP stage. Tip number 5. Remember that ending this fight with a ton of unused MP does not do you any good. There is no 11th round. Use that MP. Make sure re-raise is up all the daggum time. Don't leave anything on the table. Tip number 6. This is the fight that you should use your summon on. Hopefully, you did a better job than me equipping Cloud with something like Gilgamesh. Here, I have Alexander. Could be worse, but it certainly could have been a lot better. Having Phoenix is something that you might consider because Phoenix can cast Re-Raise MP free. And my final tip, while he does jump around a lot, you probably don't know every single one of his abilities. You can learn them if you go to Odin in the combat simulator and just battle him over and over without Zack, and you can learn the abilities. But most of the abilities, range-wise, only go as long as whatever weapon he is wielding in that moment. So if you keep a distance and keep back dodging, you're going to be able to dodge almost everything as long as you do nothing but dodge and don't slip up. So here I am deep into Odin. I just used Alexander. Let's just do a breakdown on how this thing ends. I make a decision here with Alexander out to go ahead and use my level 3 limit. And the main reason is I'm just kind of in bad shape here. My health is very low, and I want to try to get this thing staggered just for the sake of recovering my health and getting control of this fight. I make a decision here to get Re-Raise up on Cloud. And by no means am I saying I regret using Re-Raise, but I don't feel like this was the ideal time because of how close it was to being staggered. I feel like a focused thrust would have been the better decision here. But it is what it is, and Zack's going to go down, and Divine Judgment is going to fire off with it very close to stagger time. Like I said, a well-timed focus thrust is enough to stagger it. I've completely recovered, and I decide that the best thing for me to do here is go ahead and use Soldier's Honor, and I definitely think that that was a good decision because it does a ton of damage to Odin while staggered. My only nitpick here on myself is the fact that I used it with literally 0 ATB on Zack, so I am going to waste part of the infinite MP phase by not waiting to use it. This is the point of the battle where you should not care in the slightest if Zack is in infinite MP or not. You need to be firing off those Kiragas even if it costs you or not. Now, something really unfortunate is going to happen to me, and that is I have 2 focus thrusts ready, I have it pressured, and I let Cloud get absolutely wrecked and nothing to show for it. And you know, that goes back to the argument of not letting Zack be cheap with MP at this point. I should have been casting Barrier as well. That really needs to just be up at all times at this point. Use Mana Wall if you have infinite MP, but if you don't, make sure Cloud has Barrier. Don't let what just happened here happen to you. Now I'm forced to try to mount a comeback here when I could have basically ended the battle there outright had I gotten 2 focus thrusts off. Instead, what we have here is me letting Cloud die again after at least getting 1 thrust off, and now I am one-on-one with Zack against an almost staggered Odin. This is getting spicy. This is when knowing Odin's tendencies and its moves really benefit you when you're in a critical moment like that. When I needed to get Cloud up, I knew exactly when to cast Raise. Now, why did I cast Raise instead of Arise? I keep saying burn your MP, don't leave anything on the table. But at the same time here, if I don't get this off, it's all over. I go with Raise because it casts quicker than Arise does, and I have a way higher probability of getting Cloud back. Now, I know that once I have this thing staggered, although Zach goes down now, so I have to raise him back, and I need to get ATB back again so that I can limit Siphon Zach, but I know that I'm in really, really good shape now. This is far from a sure thing, but this is suddenly looking very good again. I was gearing up to have Cloud finish this thing off, and he gets hit with Stomp. And that's kind of unfortunate, but it wasn't a run-blowing thing. I make the decision to wait out the stop and just not do anything dumb, try to survive, and win this thing with a soldier's honor, which I felt was very poetic and enjoyable. And all in all, this was a lot of fun. I'm sorry this took so long for me to get out. Doing these voiceovers takes me a lot of time, and I hope that you appreciate the effort and quality that I hold myself to on these videos. In the end, I went 1 for 5 doing this strategy. I lost to Bahamut once, I lost to Alexander once, and I lost to Odin twice. I did not, however, go to sleep a loser once, and I hope that you don't either. Good luck. Thank you so much for joining me here on Gatabud. There is only one battle that remains. Stay tuned for Legendary Bout to be a hero.